finally, or I guess I shouldn't say finally, but I finally decided to watch a good anime. At least, what people consider to be a good anime. And, maybe that's not always the best case because I've seen certain animes that people consider to be good. And I personally don't like them. It's just personal taste. Or at least I don't like them as much as other people do, right? And I have my own standards in that sense of what I think is good versus what other people think is good. We all have different opinions. But this anime in particular, I watched it. And even though it's not, perfect, I wouldn't say everything about it is necessarily done to that extent. I still really enjoyed it. And, that anime, I might as well just say it's Kaiju number 8. It's pretty good if you're looking for something to just binge. It has pretty good action to it. It actually has a pretty decent plot too. I kind of like it. I really like the main character, honestly. I think the main character is very good in this anime. He's very much like a shonen type character, but I really like the fact that he's like a little bit older, because a lot of times you'll have just way too many kids, and I don't mind seeing 17-year-olds, Luffy. I like Luffy. He's one of my favorite characters, of all time. But I really like seeing these older characters because, to me it just shows a little bit more competence in that character, right? They feels like they're pre-established in the story already, and I feel like, for certain things it makes more sense to have an older character just be, this badass or something. And don't get me wrong, I do like stories with whatever age. It doesn't matter, right? It depends on the plot and how things move around, right? But anyways, that's one of my things, and the only reason I'm saying it as a compliment here isn't because you need to have an old character, but I like how it's used in the story. It's you're often reminded, maybe a little bit too much, right, that this guy's fucking old. He's 32, right? He's not too old, right? 50, but he's still pretty old, right? 32 is not a young person. He's still decently young, right? Still able to go around and kick it, and you wouldn't be too surprised, right? In fact, you can still see people that are in their 50s kicking it, and it's kind of crazy, those super athletes, as they call them, those people that are just built different, that can still do that even at that age, which I still think is pretty crazy. But that just goes to show the difference, right? And again, this is just fiction at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter too much, but I just wanted to point that out because that's one of the main things that stood out to me, as a first impression. The next thing I will say that I really kind of enjoyed about this anime is the way it went about having this character and his powers both interact, because I feel like this is a trope that's done many times, right? The demon possessing the human, right? This isn't something that's not uncommon. You have Naruto, you have Bleach in some aspect, you have Black Clover. You not really One Piece, but I guess some people would probably argue One Piece. You could probably say One Piece if you think so too. Many other ones where some sort of other deity is in there possessing someone, right? And and the thing that I really enjoyed the most, to start this off, is that it's not just like the demon fucking or whatever it is. In this case, it being a kaiju. It's not just taking control of him and just he's I'm gonna lose my humanity, girl, and he still feels like he is. He still feels a human, and it's enjoyable because they don't take it too seriously until obviously later on when it's needed. When it first happens, right? It's not like this super fucking serious thing, and it's kind of played off a little bit as a joke, and I kind of enjoy that because you can just sort of feel as the characters sort of progress and how eventually the world will see a power like this, right? At the beginning, it's just very cool, and obviously it carries its own consequences, but you don't really see the effect of it until later on in one of the later episodes, which I think is done very well in that episode when his secret finally gets revealed. that he's actually a kaiju to everyone. It's done so at like almost picture perfect in my opinion. But that, obviously that's all opinion based. Some people might not like it, but I personally think that it was done very well in this anime. So yeah, I just like how it interacts, and even when he's eventually having this struggle later on in the story with this thing in his body, it's him coming to terms with himself, and even sort of submitting himself to something that eventually overcomes it. It's not some fucking, it doesn't seem like it's some, it kind of is power friendship, right? But it doesn't feel like forced. It feels organic, and it feels like it's something that his character would do, as opposed to something that is just done to sort of move the plot along, in my opinion. And that's what I liked about it, right? That's my opinion. I will say there are some things that I did kind of get annoyed by a little bit. One of those things was like, occasionally they would just bring up something, I forget what exactly it was, but they'd mention it so many. It was, yes, okay, and I remember. It's the backstory. Why does this backstory get brought up every fucking episode? Like, you cannot go an episode without his backstory being fucking mentioned. And it's like, we know his backstory already. Stop fucking bringing it up just to waste time. Like, get along with the plot. And I feel like that slowed down so much of the scenes, in my opinion, because there's just this fucking flashback that has to come in every other scene. And I don't know why, but there was even one episode where it got put in 3 times. Like, why do you need the same scene put in to emphasize a point 3 times? 1 time is good enough. Like, it's already more than enough that you've mentioned it once, right? You've shown us this backstory 1 time. But to do it multiple times in an episode is just hitting people over the head with what the reason this guy is doing the things he is now. It doesn't make sense to just continuously remind the audience, hey, did you know that he actually has a very sad backstory? Or hey, do you know that he's actually a really good person, and the reason that he's doing this is because he's a human? Like, why do you need to remind us? We already see that in his actions. We already see that in his tone. Don't fucking remind us 50 million times. It's so obnoxious to have this happening every single episode. Like, don't get me wrong, it doesn't really change my opinion of this, but it was something that I found to be very obnoxious. And obviously this isn't the only anime to do it, but it was very like apparent in this one, in my opinion, as opposed to other ones that I've seen where maybe you'll have it once per episode at most, but this one just kept doing it, and I don't know why. I don't know why I had to just keep emphasizing that when we've already gotten it at least by 1 time being shown in an episode. That to me just didn't make any sense whatsoever, and I feel like it kind of ruined certain aspects. Again, it wasn't too much to the point where I would say it completely derailed my enjoyment. I ended up just fucking watching this in one sitting, so obviously you can tell I enjoyed it, because I usually don't just sit down and watch an anime to its entirety, because I get annoyed sometimes or whatever it is. But yeah, that's my standard here, and I think it's pretty good overall. Again, there are some other cool things that I really liked. I liked, the fact that, they weren't afraid to sort of like show different characters actually being competent, which I feel like is sometimes really hard to do. Like, ultimately, he does kind of save the day. He is still a hero, but it shows competence in other characters, which I find a lot of anime, that are similar to this just lack. They don't have another character or multiple characters that can be competent in the story, because they need to show the main character is just that much better. But in this one, they use parts of his weaknesses, they use part of his identity, at least even in some episodes, to show, like, these are characters that are competent. These are characters that can do their own things, right? And eventually when he does these cool actions, they feel more impactful, because it's like he's coming in and actually, doing his own part. It doesn't feel like it's just one action from him is the reason why they survived. It's really cool, in my opinion, in that aspect. I really enjoyed that too. So yeah, I'm gonna end it off here though, before I keep regurgitating the same points. This is an awesome anime. If you haven't watched it, it's all of the episodes are out already, so you can watch it. It's also a manga too, so you can read it if you don't like how it's animated. Because again, I can understand if somebody finds that to be annoying to not want to watch this, because again, they repeat the same backstory multiple times, and that is, I can see why somebody would find that annoying and not want to continue watching this. So I don't know if it's any different in the manga. I was actually going to check it out because I like I said, I like this enough to want to read it. And I know that it has a manga, so I'm like, okay, I might as well read it, right? So, yeah. Anyways, that's all I have to say for this anime. Goodbye.